What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to
Unclosed gestalt. They say a samurai has no goal, he only has a path. Since the only thing I have in common with the samurai is my love for sushi and sake, I always care more about the goal than the path. That's why the trip of almost 4,000 kilometers itself, although it brings romantic thoughts, but its meaning is important, otherwise it would be a waste of time. And it had a meaning, and an extremely noble one at that. I was going to take part in the off-road tournament, The Power of Siberia. I've known Dmitry Perichatko, General Director of the Interregional Association of Rally Raid Athletes, for a long time, and I couldn't refuse when he offered me to close my long-standing gestalt to take part in a real race. On your own from Moscow to Tomsk. In a Wrangler. Phut, I'll carry him there in my arms if I have to. I couldn't refuse such an offer, so first I jumped into my car and drove from St. Petersburg to Moscow to get the Jeep. It is clear that due to the simple organization of my soul I do not have my own Jeep Wrangler. But here another company helped me out, Jeep Custom from Moscow. These nice guys are engaged in servicing, repairing and tuning of Jeeps, mainly Wranglers. At first it was a kind of hobby club, and they have the same interest, Wrangler, then the club grew into a serious company. In principle, they are also engaged in sales of Jeeps, so if I wanted to, I could buy a Wrangler there, but my desires do not always coincide with my capabilities. So for now I will take advantage of their kindness and take the car just for fun, to go to a race. In a word, everything is going great so far, and I finally got an opportunity to realize my old dream, to have a little bit of fun in a rally raid. More precisely, in a short Baja, a type of rally raid with a length of less than 1,000 kilometers. On Monday morning I was already standing at the gate of Jeep Custom. Fortunately, now it takes more than 5 hours to get from St. Petersburg to Moscow along the M11 highway, and looking at the Wrangler prepared for me. And a genius, a friend of paradoxes. I was fabulously lucky. Jeep Custom gave me a 2018 Jeep Wrangler 2018 Generation JL in Rubicon configuration. The mileage of the car, 60,000 kilometers, the condition as a new car. Since the Wrangler of this generation, even though it's current, it's hard to call it a novelty. I will not describe it in detail. These cars have been driving on our roads for 5 years already, though in small quantity, so you can see them with your own eyes. Therefore, I will limit myself to a short technical reference and description of some paradoxical features of Wrangler, which make it genius in some places. Fortunately, modern automobile fashion has spared Wrangler, and it remained the same real off-roader, with a frame, split axles, a full set of rear locks, interaxle and interwheel on both axles, and overdrive with a reduction row and an unlockable front stabilizer. Against the background of a very old aspiration of some comrades to make a crossover from Pajero and to assign the glorious name Tirano to Duster, such old school makes the eye twitch. I do not know whether to rejoice or not, but the engine under the hood of our Wrangler is still more modern, Alfa Romeo Hurricane, with a capacity of 2 liters. It is not the good old Chrysler V6 Pentastar with a volume of 3.6 liters, which most often stood on the previous generation of JK. Most likely, it is good. The power of this motor is 272 horsepower, and appetite of turbocharged motor with direct injection is noticeably lower than that of the old V6. Except for the sound of this motor, Jeep has only one step to go before the whine of the Honda engines. There are no other complaints about this motor. And judging by statistics, and Jeeps with these motors with mileage over 100,000 kilometers come to Jeep Custom for servicing. Hurricane has no serious technical problems either. The gearbox here is also not the same as it was on the JK. There were boxes from Mercedes. In JL there is 8-speed hydromechanical automatic ZF 850RE, and we will see how it works later. And now it's time to get in the car and go to Kazan, to the place of the first overnight stay. Moscow, Kazan. I'm not the shortest height, but it's hard to get into the Wrangler quickly without getting used to it. It's tall, and its sills aren't the most comfortable. But they are always clean. I wipe them regularly with jeans. But if you overcome yourself in height, then, being inside, you can experience some shock from the interior of the car. The shock, I must say, is pleasant. Only a hamburger wrapped in a star-spangled flag, soaked in Coca-Cola, can be more American than the interior of Wrangler. And it is not only about the appearance, although here too Jeep is very patriotic, but also about the details. To make in the car costing about 8 million rubles, taking into account its age and mileage, a metal panel and a control unit of window lifters under the climate control, it is necessary to be very faithful to the traditions of Jeep construction. Or to leave fully mechanical adjustment of seats, and with a strap, which it is necessary to pull to recline the back of a seat. And what about the open door locks that are visible in the cabin? It's a bit odd, isn't it? Actually, not really. Firstly, Jeep's brutality should be emphasized somehow, it has such an image. Secondly, much has been done from the point of view of functionality. We should not forget that this Wrangler is characterized by the possibility to remove the roof and doors in a few minutes and to drive legally without them. Therefore, for example, the same buttons of window lifters are not on the doors, but a separate block on the panel at the driver and on the tunnel at the rear passengers. Thus wiring to mechanisms indoors is made quick release and is laid outside of doors. So it looks, of course, strange, but in fact it is very convenient. And some decisions are really ingenious. For example, rear view camera, installed in a hub of a spare wheel, or hood locks, which are opened simply from outside. At the same time getting acquainted with the car, we drive out on Gorkovskoe Highway, the beginning of M7 highway, on which we will go to Kazan. To be more exact, first to Vladimir, where we will have to make a stop. There is a whole team with a videographer and Jeep custom representative in the car, and since we represent the best production in the country, we need to decorate the car a little with stickers, which are waiting for us just in Vladimir. I don't want to say much about the roads near Moscow. I would like to see the M12 highway built as soon as possible, after which this very Moscow region with its traffic jams would be on the shock absorber rod of any car. As long as there is no such highway, we have to drive through traffic jams. The traffic here is intense, but already now we can safely say that 6.8 seconds to 100 km per hour is very convenient for rearrangements and overtaking. But, of course, it is necessary to press the pedal wisely. Rear drive and curb weight of almost 2 tons is not Golf-R, and some perfected. Controllability in Wrangler is not so much. Taking into account aerodynamics of a brick, it turns out to be interesting at all, but not slow at all. Cameras, cameras, cameras. Probably, it is the only thing that the highway to Vladimir can be remembered by. And it is a little bit offensive, because the places are ancient and interesting. But we don't care about them. We have to go, so all our attention is on the road and its guards in brightly colored uniforms with the inscription DPS. In Vladimir we pick up the stickers and drive to Kazan. Now without stops. I should note that I like the M7 highway, as well as some other federal highways, more and more every year. The road from Peter to UFA is a native road for me, and I have been driving there and back several times a year for the last few years. Yes, endless repairs of M7 and M5 can't help but piss you off, but it's for the best. You can drive without thinking about potholes and other troubles. Though, of course, these potholes are not very noticeable on the Wrangler, it swallows all small and not so small bumps at once. The best thing you can do on the highway with our car is to get ahead or overtake. Here Wrangler is just good, its acceleration is enviable. The only thing that annoys is a noticeable delay after pressing the gas pedal. The box behaves thoughtfully, so it is necessary to get used to it. The second feature of the car is a vertical windshield. They say that it is a consumable here, as well as on Gelandewagen. Too often it is hit by stones on the highway, which become the reason of numerous chips. We did not catch any stones, thank God, but insects are a real trouble. And yet we still managed to enjoy the views of Chuvasha and Tatarstan even through the remains of flies, wasps, bees and other bugs. And butterflies smeared on the glass. The places, of course, are beautiful, but you should not get distracted from the road unnecessarily. Closer to Kazan, road repairs started, and road builders are unpredictable people. They will indicate the beginning of reversing traffic with a concrete block across the lane, or they will place some flags on the fittings which are not visible in the light of headlights, although the Jeep's light is very good. That's why there is nothing strange in the fact that especially ambush places of roadworks are sometimes strewn with fragments of plastic dodger of cars on which our Jeep was rushing to Kazan with a cheerful crunch. We arrived in Kazan late at night, so we didn't manage to see it. However, I have been there often, so I just went to bed. In the morning we have to put stickers on the car and leave for Chelyabinsk as early as possible. Kazan, Chelyabinsk. In the morning we started to pace the car. It's a painful but unfortunately necessary task. Without sponsors you can't go far. And at once we drove further, through UFA to Chelyabinsk. The navigator told us that the M7 road would be an hour shorter than the M5, so we returned to the Volga highway and drove along it. The road through Tatarstan and Bashkortostan is quite picturesque. The relief here is more pronounced, so you can look to the sides. True, the number of lanes in many places has been reduced to 2, before there were more often 4, so you have to overtake more often than overtake, but the Jeep copes with both easily. Meanwhile, the Tata night butterflies on the roadsides have been replaced by Bashkir traffic cops. Strange as it may seem, there are a lot of them here, although the number of KPMs on the roads is decreasing rapidly. Traffic police officers stand there for a reason. There are markings not everywhere, but they hang signs generously. There is a good chance to overtake and stay without a driver's license, so we drive carefully, but quickly. We reached UFA practically unnoticed. At this point the M7 highway ended, and we bypassed the capital of Bashkortostan from the south and took the M5 Ural. Oh, this highway is called Ural for a reason. Crossing the southern spurs of the Ural Mountains is both joyful and sad at the same time. Joyful from very beautiful landscapes outside the window, sad from the number of trucks creeping along the mountain roads. Especially sad are the old Kamazes that creep into the mountains doomed and very quietly. Of course, we could have chosen another road. There are options, but we were not looking for easy ways. On the second day, I called sloppy drivers who overtake across solid lines and in blind corners under a forbidden sign a little more harshly. To rush to the other side of the road is their right, but taking other road users with them is wrong. But when a whole string of cars crawls behind a Kamaz for a long time, someone is bound to lose his nerve. And it's sad. Chelyabinsk was not as harsh as we expected. It is quite a nice city, and no one here drinks vodka from morning till night, snacking on it with a cut glass. However, the smell here is strange, and during the night a slight but suspicious soot coating appeared on the car. Frankly speaking, it is not very pleasant, but what can you do? Industry, however. In the morning the operator and I went for a walk around the city, having got up a couple of hours early on purpose. We went, of course, to the center, to Kirov Street, the local pedestrian Arbat. I am absolutely indifferent to sculptures, but on Kirovka, as the locals call the street, they are somehow special. There are a lot of them. There is a townsman, a walker, a fashionista, a beggar, hachiko, and a shoeshine man. Surprisingly, but they are really worth seeing. Although, of course, the flavor of the harsh city is present here. For example, a few years ago the sculpture of Lev Shah had its arm sawed off. It was bronze, which means that it could be sold for scrap metal. Another arm was attached, but the residue remained. However, we quickly forgot it and moved on to Omsk. Chelyabinsk, Omsk. Probably, many people have already asked, how much did your Wrangler burn? It is not the most economical car. But it is not. Still, this 2-liter engine was able to surprise us. The average consumption was kept at the level of 12 liters. Sometimes it rose up to 12.5 liters, sometimes it dropped to 11.5. And this is a very good indicator for a 2-ton SUV. However, we were not too worried about consumption. The Yandex refueling service covered our fuel needs all the way from Moscow to Tomsk. And it was perfect. We refueled without leaving the car, either from the Zapravok app or from Yandex Navigator, which shows all the gas stations connected to the service. You drove up to a gas station, chose its number, paid, refueled, and drove on. Quick and convenient. And the main thing is that we were not afraid to fill up some junk instead of gasoline. The fuel is insured and its quality is checked. Considering that there are many brands of gas stations in the Urals that are completely unfamiliar to me, this is very useful. You just fill up and don't think that the gasoline will be of poor quality. That's how we drove to Tomsk, quickly and without fear for the Wrangler. From Chelyabinsk to Kurgan the road seemed to us simple, not bad asphalt, minimum of repairs, beauty on the sides, but after Kurgan. You should be careful, by default navigator wants to take the shortest way, and this way runs through Kazakhstan. That's why it is better to go to the north and go through Ishim. These places are known for their bogs. These are the famous Vasyugansk bogs with an area of more than 53,000 square kilometers. They stretch from west to east for almost 600 kilometers, and the scenery outside the window, I must say, drives you into the central Russian boredom. One wants either to drink vodka and listen to Lyub, or not to drink it and listen to nothing, Lyub in the first place. These are dreary places. Even lakes, which are numerous and large in area, seem just huge puddles. Plains, swamps, lakes, that's all. And so, dozens of kilometers. Boring. Struggling with sleep, we reached Omsk. By this time I humbly called sloppy drivers just sheep. They don't turn on turn signals, go head on to overtake, neglect daytime running lights. In a word, sheep. And where there are 2 lanes in each direction on the highway, they stubbornly drive on the left one, although it is punishable by a fine. In Omsk we checked into some hotel, which the now deceased Hitchcock was looking for but did not find for the scenery of his movies. In the morning we went to see the Omsk fortress. Theoretically, this is where Omsk began. The fortress began to be built in the late XVLL century for defense against nomads, but all the buildings have not survived to this day, of course. But you can see some things. For example, the Tobolsk Gate, one of the earliest buildings, or the money storehouse, the engineering workshop and a lot of other buildings dated both XVLL and XLX centuries. You can even try on a chain mail, but everything was closed at 7 in the morning. And also on the territory of the fortress there is not a bad space for those who like chili with smoothies, so said our operator. I can't imagine it well. The architectural ensemble, let's be honest, did not turn out, but in general it was interesting. And I also liked some wild-looking horse which looks at passers-by with such a look, as if all the surrounding people are nothing. Compared to Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky, with whom this horse spent 4 years on the same bed in this fortress. Although, maybe it is not a horse. Omsk-Tomsk, the last section was the most boring, not too heavy traffic, quite a decent road, and yes, the same bogs. The road, by the way, is even better than I expected. Almost everywhere there is a whole asphalt, and there are even markings. I must confess honestly, there is nothing to tell about this part of the road. Or maybe I was already feeling tired and my brain refused to perceive unnecessary information. Anyway, from Omsk to Tomsk we got there very quickly, which we were glad about. We could go to bed early, and we had been dreaming about it since about Kazan. The Wrangler has never let us down. I'll say more, it didn't even disappoint. I confess, I was afraid that a frame SUV is not the best car for a long trip on the highway. In fact, everything turned out to be a little different. Yes, if there are off-road rides in your plans, then Wrangler, especially after some preparation, will fit perfectly. It is also possible to drive it on the highway, and quite comfortably, but I would buy something else for this money. I am not a fan of moving far from asphalt and appreciate comfort more. Nevertheless, this car has a very comfortable fit. My back did not hurt on any of the seats, including the rear seats. Dynamics it is enough with a head, and the only thing that can annoy is aerodynamic noises, which tire the rear sofa passengers. On front seats these noises are not so much, though they still exist, and here behind at speed from 100 km per hour it is simply noisy. But taking into account off-road potential of Jeep, these highway shortcomings can be forgiven to it. It was not built for such roads. In Tomsk, we have yet to test the Wrangler in difficult conditions on the power of Siberia Baja. And it will be a really tough test, but we will tell you about it next time. Believe me, it's much more interesting than even such a long car journey. And much faster. As we wrap up our incredible journey of 3,650 kilometers on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon JL, we hope you've enjoyed the adventure as much as we have. From challenging terrains to breathtaking landscapes, this rally raid has tested our limits and showcased the true capabilities of this remarkable vehicle. Whether you're an off-road enthusiast or simply a lover of exploration, we encourage you to seek out your own adventures. Remember, the road less traveled often leads to the most unforgettable experiences. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.